On June 13, 2025, Israel initiated the conflict by conducting strikes on key Iranian military and nuclear sites. In response, Iran retaliated accordingly, leading to heightened tensions between both nations. During this crisis, President Trump, the warmonger, intervened on June 22 by carrying out attacks on 3 Iranian nuclear facilities without congressional approval, violating the U.S. Constitution. This unilateral act also disrupted a ceasefire agreement with the Houthi rebels, escalating regional conflicts further. President Trump initiated military action against Iran due to his belief that Iran is developing a nuclear weapon, despite evidence to the contrary. Tulsi Gabbard, Trump's director of national intelligence, stated that Iran is now working on a nuclear weapon. The Trump administration's argument for military action against Iran, similar to George W. Bush's rationale for invading Iraq, is based on the assertion that Iran is developing a nuclear weapon. This claim serves as a pretext for regime change in Iran. Trump's explicit statement on Truth Social calling for a regime change lends credence to the notion of a potential American ground invasion. The consequences of the U.S. invasion of Iraq, including war crimes and long-lasting regional instability, serve as a cautionary tale. Escalating military conflicts in the Middle East contributes to a never-ending cycle of violence, ultimately weakening America and the regions involved. From a bigger perspective, it's widely acknowledged that war brings nothing but destruction, suffering, and loss. Pacifism, with its emphasis on peace and non-violence, serves America far better in every aspect. Hypothetically, even if the worst-case scenario unfolds with American troops invading Iran, the underlying motivation would seem to align with pursuing American and Israeli hegemony in the region rather than a defense of their own country. An American invasion of Iran could prove even more devastating than the situation in Iraq. Drawing parallels to the Vietnam War, the American military presence in Iran would likely lead a prolonged conflict, echoing the challenges faced in Vietnam. The official engagement of American forces since June 22 marks an escalation in tensions, but the term war here specifically refers to a scenario involving boots-on-the-ground deployments. To quote from an article published on the National Interest titled "Why Invading Iran Would Be a Military Disaster Worse Than Vietnam," tactically the US would require significantly more military personnel than what they initially deployed in Iraq. The landscape of Iran, spanning a terrain larger than Iraq and Afghanistan combined, presents unique challenges due to its combination of desert and mountainous regions. Despite possessing advanced technology, U.S. forces with the daunting task of navigating harsh terrains, potentially necessitating a substantial military commitment to effectively control the region. The geographical challenges in Iran pose additional complexities, as the mountainous and desert landscapes could offer substantial cover or concealment for dug-in local forces or insurgents. Drawing a parallel to the situation in Iraq, Saddam Hussein's strategic preparations in 2003 included a series of delaying actions, focusing on defending crucial points and crossroads, perhaps as a strategy to raise the cost of invasion beyond what Washington would tolerate. Furthermore, Iraq's history of a formidable insurgency is linked to Saddam's decision to disperse munitions, which played a role in the conflict following the invasion. In contrast to Iraq in 2003, Iran is likely to exhibit a different military approach. Its doctrines more heavily emphasize asymmetric warfare tactics. Notably, during the Millennium Challenge 2002 exercise, simulated Iranian speedboats, despite their relative technological inferiority, overwhelmed American carrier surface radars in the Gulf and effectively sank 19 U.S. ships. The strategic insights of Sun Tzu ring true. Understanding one's enemy while underestimating their potential can lead to costly defeats. The aftermath of military intervention, as exemplified by the example of Iraq, teaches us important lessons. The late British strategist Sir Basil Liddell Hart once remarked, "If you concentrate exclusively on achieving victory without considering the aftermath, it is highly probable that the resulting peace will be unstable." Sowing the seeds of another conflict, the invasion of Iraq ushered in a prolonged period of instability marked by an insurgency, requiring years of stability operations. Military analysts often use ratios of deployed forces per thousand population as a metric stability operations across various scenarios. The coalition forces in Iraq before the 2007 surge amounted to approximately 169,000 personnel, translating to a ratio of 6.3 per 1,000. Following the surge in 2007, the ratio increased to 7.1 per 1,000, excluding local forces. Iran's population of 81 million is more than 3 times that of Iraq in 2003 and exceeds the combined population of Iraq and Afghanistan. In a broader geopolitical context, a war between the US and Iran would be a war of choice with far-reaching geopolitical implications. Despite their differences, the countries share a common interest in disrupting the ISIS threat. They also have a vested interest in maintaining the free flow of oil from the Gulf region and are concerned about the potential resurgence of the the Taliban in Afghanistan. The potential toppling of the Iranian regime could have far-reaching implications, extending beyond its borders to the deserts of Iraq, Syria, Afghanistan, and Pakistan. This potential breach of instability should caution policymakers, as Sir Basil Liddell Hart once said, reminding us that the ultimate purpose of war is to achieve a better peace. This is not a world that Washington aspires to see. An invasion of Iran by the United States would present significant challenges. The country is much larger than Iraq and Afghanistan, and even in simulated scenarios the US sustained losses. Theoretically, the odds would favor America, but the potential occupation would be far from easy. The geographical terrain of Iran is considered ideal for guerrilla warfare, which could lead to a prolonged and challenging conflict for the US. Considering the population of Iran with its 92 million people, it's worth noting that this figure is nearly on par with Vietnam's population at 100 million. However, this figure does not take into account how oil prices would likely rise due to potential conflicts and disruptions in the region. Particularly relevant would be the strategic significance of the Strait of Hormuz. In the event of a US invasion, Iran might choose to shut down the strait, further exacerbating the issues of the region. There are more reasons than just this as to why an invasion of Iran would be a disastrous decision. Here is a quote from Al Jazeera, titled "Why War with Iran Would Spell Disaster." Senior military and political figures have warned that a war with Iran would be no swift and easy affair. The potential conflict would likely dwarf the scale of the Iraq and Afghanistan wars, which already resulted in the loss of thousands of lives and a substantial financial cost. The consequences could reach unprecedented proportions, making previous conflicts appear to be a mere cakewalk in comparison. Former Mossad chief Ephraim Halevi described the potential conflict with Iran as a generations-long war, highlighting the immense challenges and prolonged impact it would likely have. Compared to Iraq and Afghanistan, where the populations were smaller and the countries more vulnerable before facing the US, an invasion of Iran would face considerable hurdles due to the country's large active military, trained special forces, and guerrilla organizations operating in multiple regions worldwide. Retired US General John Abizaid, at the time the commander of US Central Command, had previously described the Iranian military as the most powerful in the Middle East, excluding Israel. Moreover, Abizaid highlighted how the highly sophisticated and battle-hardened Iranian proxy forces in Lebanon and Iraq were able to successfully overcome significantly stronger and better funded Western military forces. It's important to note that even if the US were to win such a war, the cost would be immense. The past decade of fighting in Iraq and Afghanistan against relatively weak opponents without extensive political influence pales in comparison to the potential conflict with Iran. Politicians advocating for war with Iran are leading the American people into a battle that will undoubtedly have far-reaching and lasting consequences. A comprehensive study revealed that an initial aerial assault on Iran would necessitate deploying hundreds of planes, ships, and missiles, a military operation on parallel scale since the first Gulf War, marking only the initial phase of a potential protracted war of attrition. With the US still grappling with the aftermath of previous, less intense conflicts, the exhaustion and economic strain stemming from a large-scale war with Iran would likely amplify existing challenges and further burden the nation's resources. Iran's abundant oil and natural gas reserves, coupled with its strategic positioning near crucial shipping routes and neighboring countries' resources. The Strait of Hormuz, strategically located in the Persian Gulf, serves as a significant passage for approximately 20% of the world's petroleum shipments. To maintain control over this crucial waterway, Iran reportedly deploys advanced silkworm missile batteries at key locations. Furthermore, Iran's innovative swarming naval tactic targeting larger, less maneuverable ships used by the US Navy pose a significant challenge to any military operations in the area. Although Iran might not win a direct military confrontation, it has developed effective tactics that leverage asymmetry to inflict losses on a significantly stronger adversary. The resulting turmoil will likely disrupt the flow of oil through the Strait of Hormuz, driving up oil prices to unprecedented levels. Former National Security Advisor Zbigniew Brzezinski warned that a drawn-out war with Iran would have devastating economic consequences for the average American citizen, with repercussions that could persist for years. In any military conflict, the impacts can extend far beyond the battlefield, with consequences that can reverberate for years to come. With the prospect of a large-scale war on the horizon, it is crucial for political leaders to be transparent about its potential negative impacts on the American public. But the US being likely to emerge as the victor, Iran's stronger army compared to Iraq cannot be underestimated. Moreover, it's important to consider the potential support for Iran from countries like Russia, China, Afghanistan, Cuba, North Korea, and even Serbia. The shutdown of the Strait of Hormuz would lead to soaring oil prices, adversely affecting the average American and potentially triggering a recession. This situation would make it abundantly clear that the promise of reduced gas prices, a key campaign promise of President Trump, lacks substance and is nothing but a deceptive claim. In the end, history will likely remember President Trump as a figure who rose to power through deception, corruption, and the corrosion of American democracy. His policies contributed to a period of decline and poverty in the country. The impact of his actions on both American and Middle Eastern lives has been devastating, marking a continuation of war, death, and destruction. The idea of another war in the Middle East is disheartening, especially when one considers that the region is already facing numerous armed conflicts. A full-scale invasion of Iran has the potential to escalate the situation to unforeseen levels. The best-case scenario might be that President Trump's popularity, which is already low, could decrease even further, similar to the unpopularity experienced by former President Bush at the end of his term. And that wraps up this video. Apologies for its length, as I did cover quite a bit of information. If you enjoyed the content, please take a moment to like the video, leave a comment, and consider subscribing to the channel for more informative videos. Peace.